topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Churchill said, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it." Kevin Hallinan believes that certainly applies to business. Welcome to Winning Business Radio, here at W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. And now, your host, Kevin Hallinan.
Thanks, everybody, for joining in today. I am Kevin Hallinan, and welcome back to Winning Business TV and Radio on W4CY.com. We are streaming live on Talk4TV.com. In addition, we're available live on Facebook, and that's at Winning Business Radio. And, of course, we're available in podcast after the live show on tons of platforms. Pretty much wherever you get your podcast content, we are there. That's YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Google, etc. The list goes on. The mission of Winning Business Radio and TV, as regular viewers and listeners know, is to offer insights and advice to help people avoid the mistakes of others, right? To learn best practices. Those are I like to say, the how-tos, the what-tos, the what-not-tos, to be challenged and hopefully to be inspired by the successes of others, consultants, coaches, advisors, authors, founders and owners, entrepreneurs, people with expertise. But of course, virtually every successful person I've ever had a chance to talk to has had some form of failure in their lives and careers, some small, some larger. So listen, while we all have to get our knees skinned once in a while, every week I say I'm driven to keep those scrapes from needing major surgery. Let's endeavor to learn from history so we don't repeat it. I've spent the better part of my career equipping businesses to grow, from solopreneurs to small and medium-sized companies, all the way to the Fortune 50. I've seen some of those companies win, and to varying degrees, I've seen some fail. I've had the opportunity to rub elbows with some of the highest performing people around and with some who probably should have found other professions. In my own businesses, I've had lots of success, but of course, some failures too. And I like to think I've learned a lot from those experiences. So yeah, you're going to hear from me, my opinions and insights, because anybody who knows me, right, Tim, will tell you I have a hard time staying quiet. But more importantly, together we'll hear from experts, those consultants, coaches, advisors, authors, founders and owners and entrepreneurs. Today, my guest is Tim Hassett-Salley, old friend Tim Hassett-Salley, two-time award-winning author of Strike Two, You're Out and Samsara Interrupted. Here's his bio. Tim Hassett-Salley was born in 1960 in rural northeastern Connecticut. He received his BA in psychology and music from Providence College and earned his graduate degrees in counseling from Bridgewater State University. For many years, he maintained a private psychotherapy practice counseling violent and abusive men. After publishing his first novel, Strike Two, You're Out, Tim received the 2020 Dr. Adrian Tinsley Award for Achievement in the Arts. His second novel, Samsara Interrupted, was published in 2024. Both novels have received many excellent reviews. Tim is married and has 3 adult children and 3 grandchildren. Want to hear about them. He's a sprint triathlete, an avid tennis player, and plays the drums in his spare time. He's an underachiever. Tim is currently the Director of Revenue Development at the Workers' Compensation Research Institute. He's held leadership positions for over 35 years within the workers' compensation and disability management industry. In addition, Tim was an adjunct faculty member of the counseling department in the Graduate School of Education at Bridgewater State University. Tim has presented at many conferences and institutions, including National Comp, International Claim Association, Arkansas Self-Insurers Association, New England Claim Association, the list goes on, several colleges and universities. Tim, welcome to Winning Business Radio.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Glad to be here.
I'm glad you are. And I appreciate I know how busy you are, and I appreciate you taking the time. So we're going to talk a bit about business, and we're certainly going to talk about your books a lot. But first, tell us about your family.
Well, they're all growing. The ones that are growing the most right now are the grandkids. Everybody else is stable. But great. I get 3 great adult children, and they're all found wonderful partners in life, and 3 growing grandkids.
Nice, nice. Does your wife work or had a career? What does she do or did?
She's a retired French teacher, so
Oh, wow. High
she
school?
retired as soon as the first son was born.
Nice. She's not really retired then.
Yeah, right.
She's busy.
She shifted, yeah.
Um, so you grew up in rural, as you like to say, rural northeastern Connecticut. Tell us the town and what it was like to grow up there.
So I grew up in a town called Ellington,
Hmm.
Connecticut, and it was mostly cows and tobacco.
Yeah.
And I just had the opportunity to drive through there about a month ago,
Love
and
it.
I was just shocked at how much development there was, and
Mm.
so many. Growing up, you could see corn forever and ever and ever. Corn, corn, corn. Cows, and then I actually picked tobacco as a teenager, and I think most of that is gone now.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Yeah, most of that's in the Carolinas.
Yeah,
That's still a shrinking business, but
it
it's
is. So
interesting. One of the good to great companies in Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, was a tobacco company. Believe it or not.
yeah, we were into Connecticut broadleaf cigar tobacco. So
Mhm.
the wrappers that are still used today, the Connecticut seed. If you get a real good quality cigar, you might see it says Connecticut wrapper or Connecticut seed. So it was quite a business. It's a terrible job to have.
Yeah.
It's one of those jobs you have before you go off to college, and it reminds you that you really want to be in college.
Don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was working in a meat room in a grocery store,
Ugh,
a family-run 2-location grocery store, and it was dirty and gross. You went home smelling all day, all the
yeah,
time.
and the dogs follow you home.
They I didn't have that happen, but I was surprised it never did. What were your early interests?
I would say baseball and
Mhm.
riding bikes and fishing. I mean, it was in that regard that was a great place to grow up because we did plenty of all of that. And I had a lot of kids in the family,
Yep.
and so we were not inside the house very much. We were out. If we were in the house, my mother always said, "I'll find something for you to do." And it wasn't what you'd want to do.
My mother would always say, and I heard a comedian talking about it, "Get out of the house. Go outside." Not that doesn't happen as much anymore. And when did you get into music and start playing the drums?
So I started playing drums when I was 10 years old,
Hmm.
and I graduated from hitting the pots and pans in my metal
Nice,
lunchbox.
nice.
My father showed up with a 1930s vintage
Wow,
uh, drum set, a big band type of drum set, and I took private lessons after that, and drummed all through high school and college, and even right up until the pandemic, I was playing in a band.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
it's been
You may
great.
know, uh, for full disclosure, Tim and I have known each other for 20 years, 20 something years. Um, we used to hang out in the same networking organizations and we did a little work together. So I play trumpet, if you may recall. And I was telling people today, watching the inauguration a little bit, that I marched in Reagan's 81 parade because I was at the UMass. I was at UMass in the Minuteman Marching Band. So that was cold, but a
Okay,
ton of fun and
yeah,
pretty
wonderful,
historic. Yeah.
wonderful.
Um, do you play other instruments?
Well, I was a music major,
Yeah.
so I had to learn piano. I'm a
Yeah.
terrible piano player, but
Yep.
I play a little flute and I play some guitar as well.
Nice. So you're the guy they want in the band.
They won't give me a microphone. They don't want me to sing, so I'll just sit in the back and play the drums.
So what made you decide to go to Providence College and to major in psychology?
Well, the majoring psychology part for me, if you remember Bob Newhart in his first
I
show,
do.
the
I do.
Bob
Love
Newhart
that
show,
show.
I loved it too. He was a funny psychologist and seemed like he was having a great time. And I said, that's what
His
I want to
comedy
do.
routines,
Yeah,
he's one of my favorites because he would do that one side conversation, which was part of different bits that he would do, but he would do it perfectly, you know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
So that was kind of what first got me interested in
Yeah.
psychology. And Providence College was one of these situations where when I was about junior high, maybe just going into freshman year,
Mm.
uh, Providence College basketball was really big, and Ernie
Yeah.
DiGregorio was
Yeah.
there. They went to the Final Four, and that really put them on the map for me. And I had one really good teacher in high school who had gone to Providence,
Cool.
and I think that impacted me. That smart people could go there, and maybe you come out smart. I don't know. But they accepted me, and so I said, "Let's go." Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was for me and UMass. They took me in. Let's go. Um, So I want to ask about this because it must have been, as I hear it, it sounds like it was very challenging that you had a private practice specializing in violent and abusive men. And they were probably referred to you by, I don't know, I'm just envisioning courts or family or somebody, right?
Sure, sure. So a lot of them were referred by the courts, by
Hmm.
probation officers.
Hmm.
Also, some were referred by the Women's Center. I was the only male employee for a while at the South Shore Women's
Wow.
Center,
Wow.
and so I would get the abusive spouse of someone who might have been in the Women's Center seeking treatment as a victim, and it was a it's a heavy
Yeah.
subject, and
Yeah.
it's I think that's something that when you're talking to aspiring therapists, really talk to them about how to compartmentalize your emotions from theirs. And my professors used to say, it's not your problem, it's their problem. You're just there to
Mm,
help them with their
mm,
problem. But it is difficult to make that transition from uh, talking about some really, really heavy things, and then literally 15 minutes later have to be in your house, uh, being a husband and a father.
mm.
So
Yeah.
I think the danger is when you compartmentalize that and keep the emotion, the terrible emotions that you just heard, the terrible circumstances, to keep that out of your head. You're also at the same time risking keeping your own emotions
Mm,
dampened.
mm.
And I think it takes a lot of work to try to be in touch with your emotions, especially as a man, and to have a normal life while you just listen to some really terrible stuff.
I've always heard that most therapists have a therapist. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think they do or should. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I normally ask what's your most important lesson learned, and you just explained it, a couple minutes ago. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
And then you've spent many years in business development, particularly in and around insurance and the Social Security niche. How did that come about? Because it's been
Sure.
many years,
Well,
30 something years,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So I started as I was as a counselor, a
Hmm.
vocational counselor in the business, and working with people who were out of work and wanting to get back to work. And that kind of, we it was at a time when in the industry when there weren't that many referrals to vocational rehab, and I complained about it not having enough work. And we were on a billable hour type of thing. I wasn't getting enough work, and they basically said, "Do you think you can do better? You get into business development." So
Yeah.
that was about 35 years ago. I got into the business development side of it, and I think the having had the background in psychology has really helped me as a salesperson. I really think there's a very close connection between sales and psychology.
I do as well, and you and I have talked about the Sandler selling methodology. That's the world I come from, and you're familiar with. And a lot of it is psychologically based, just anticipating reactions and kind of appealing to some of that in a healthy way. Um, what are some of the most important lessons you've learned in business development and in development? Now, by the way, explain the difference to the audience between business development and in a nonprofit world development.
So I don't make a big distinction between
Hmm.
those, because in a nonprofit is just a business classification. You
Hmm.
still need to make money. We still have at the institute we have almost 30 employees, and they need to be. We need to have funding to pay for all of them so they can do the great work that they're doing.
Hmm.
So that's, for me, what's personally rewarding is that I'm no longer doing direct care with people in need,
Hmm.
but I am providing funding to a group of people who each of them are making money and bringing it home and able to feed their families. So it's a kind of an extension effect.
So your sale, if you will, is bringing in funds.
Correct. So I get funding from state governments and large
Hmm.
insurance companies, and they provide us some, it's based on the size of the insurance company, but some
Hmm.
bigger ones are paying more and the smaller ones are paying less, but it all adds up, and we're able uh, to take on the research projects that we do. And we're really providing a public service, if you will,
Hmm.
uh, because our work is available to not just the people who are paying for it through funding us, but also on an ad hoc basis as they pay for what they need as they go along.
Got it. All right. We'll come back in just a couple minutes. I have a lot more questions. Everybody, we'll be back in about a minute with Tim Hassett-Salley.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
Have you ever dreamt of being on the radio? Well, now is your chance. Be a radio show guest on the #1 ranked internet radio station and promote you and your business for free. Yes, you heard it, free. Business advertising right here on W4CY.com. Call 561-506-4031 now to get booked on one of our shows. That's 561-506-4031. Get your free advertising now.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
Welcome back. Today, my guest is Tim Hassett-Salley, two-time award-winning author of Strike Two, You're Out, and Samsara Interrupted. Tim, before we get to the books, I want to ask you about your athletics, your triathlete. How did you get into that?
Well,
That's hardcore. That's not for the faint of heart, right?
Well, I do what's called a sprint triathlon, which is a shorter distance, and it's the swimming, biking, and running. But I was getting bored with just running. I'd been a long-time runner, and I was also racking up not only a lot of miles, I was racking up a lot of injuries. And the triathlon allows you to really cross-train and do different things, and injure yourself in different ways.
The battle scars, right? You can show this. Yeah. But this one I got in. This one,
I'm sorry. When you as you get older, there's fewer and fewer people in your age group that are doing it, but the people that are doing it are very competitive. So it's I'm not winning any awards, but it's still great to go out there and do something healthy and feel like I'm competing against some really talented people.
It's funny, during COVID, I did a virtual 5K, which means you run a 5K, take a picture of your watch at completion. It's an honor system. And I came in first in my age class. Turned out I was the only one in my age class.
That's okay. That's a side note.
That's right. I actually was pretty proud of myself. I did well for me.
Good for you.
Tim, I neglected to ask you earlier. You'll notice that as we're talking at some point, to put your website for the books rather, and any contact info, like an email address you may want to put in the chat and want to put it in the crawl.
Okay.
So I want to get back to the tie-in. When we were starting, you said that psychology is the sort of string that brings your counseling background, the business development work that you do, and the books together. Talk about that. And then I want to talk about how you became an author, when you realized you wanted to be an author, et cetera.
Well, that's a great question. And I remember when I had my private practice, and this goes back several years, many years now. And I thought, I got to write this stuff down. I've got to write a book. But the individual people, for not only for ethical reasons, but it wouldn't make a great book just talking about case studies. Yeah. So what I did is I wrote a story about people, and in the first book, which is Strike Two, You're Out. Here it is, Strike Two, You're Out. That right here. Yeah, there you go. You got a nice copy there. The main character in that becomes after college, he becomes a psychologist. And so I was able to channel a lot of these stories through his clients, but there was no one person, no one character in the book who represented one actual person. It's a real composite, as I did with all my characters. They don't represent any one particular person. Right. But it was a way to kind of weave them in and show that real people have real problems. And I was able to, express a lot of some of them were very serious, but for the most part, a lot of people's issues are mundane to the rest of us, but they're important to the person who's going through it.
Mm.
So,
When did you know? Actually, when did you start writing that? What year?
so I published it in 2019, the first book, but it took me 6 years to write. So
That was okay. Yeah,
2013.
yeah.
So I was in my mid 50s
Hmm.
when I first started writing these things down.
Yeah.
And my process was to walk the dogs in the morning and through the woods and come up with all of this stuff. And I did a lot of traveling in those years
Hmm.
pre-pandemic, and I would get onto a plane. Instead of watching the TV in the seat back in front of me, I would take out a pad and I would just write and write, write. The next thing I know it, we were landing. We're
Wow.
at the destination. And very often that night, I would take out my laptop and type up what I had written and get my first edit in.
So, did you have an editor? Did you have after a while get an editor? Who did your editing?
So my wife happened to be a retired teacher, but she also had taught at the college level and taught English and that sort of thing. And I felt with her literary background, she would really be good. So she did my first read and edit, which was, the things in that book. It's not a happy book. And for her to read some of them, I give her a lot of credit for being able to read it and be critical as far as what I was writing.
Had she not heard a lot, or probably many of those stories before?
Right.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of the business, you can't share
Yeah.
that, any particular stories about a particular person, but
Hmm.
as a composite character and embellishing it, uh, that's the author's privilege to embellish. Then it was really the first time that she'd heard some of those stories. And I think to think that I was the one going through some of that was upsetting to her.
I'm not surprised. I don't blame her. So when did you started writing? Did you know you wanted to become a novel? Did you know you wanted to become a novelist? And
I
then
didn't,
talk about
yeah.
also the process of getting it published.
Okay, so I didn't know if I don't consider myself a writer. I certainly didn't at that time,
Yeah.
and I didn't know what could become. I started writing it as scene, act one, scene one, as if it
Hmm.
were a play or stage
Hmm.
production or something like that. And I think it would lend itself to that. But as I kept going on and on, and creating new scenarios and new periods in the main character's life, it was getting on to a number of pages. It's about 360 pages or so. And so there was something there. It was enough substance. The process of getting it published, I went through in an independent publishing
Hmm.
process, which is KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing.
Hmm.
That's an Amazon product. They had taken over. I can't even remember the name that it had before that. And I also sought the guidance and association through the Independent Publishers of New England, the IPNE. A lot of great people there and a lot of very helpful pointers from people who've done this many times.
So tell the audiences, listeners and viewers about Joe Davis.
So Joe Davis is a guy that does a lot of bad things in his life, but I think you still root for him.
Hmm.
Some of the things that happened to him.
By the way, main character of Strike Two, You're Out.
Main character. He gets himself into some trouble as a young teenager, and one of the ways out of his trouble is to volunteer for Vietnam.
Yes, this was the
Or
70s.
volunteer for
Yep.
the Marine Corps.
Right.
And it just happened to be at the tail end of the Vietnam War. So some of the problems he brought on himself, and then the issues of going to Vietnam and witnessing what he did was thrust upon him. And then he's someone that didn't do well resolving one issue before he got involved in the next issue. So the one issue begat another issue and then another, and they never got resolved. He kept plowing through life. And I think even though he does some dastardly things, you're still rooting for him in a way. You want him to redeem himself. And I think that's what it is. And the title has nothing to do with baseball, strike two, you're out. It really has to do with life isn't necessarily fair.
Mm.
You don't always get three swings at bat.
Mm-hmm.
You might get called out after you've had two shots at it. And I think that's what the theme through it is that you really should take care of your issues while you're here and you get a chance to do it. And don't be thinking always, how can I get away with this until the next thing, thing.
Mm. Who is the book intended for?
Definitely an adult audience.
Mm-hmm.
It's got some graphic content and it's got some graphic language. But it's intended for anyone who likes to read and who might not require a happy ending.
So Joe doesn't have a happy. I know I was going to mention that. I didn't know if you would or not, but
Yeah.
Joe does not have that happy of an ending.
No.
We won't say what the ending is. But
thank you. Yeah. It's funny. It's not, the book wasn't loved by everyone. In fact, this summer, my dad, who actually just passed away a couple months ago, but he was really with it right up until the end. And so he's 98 years old. And this
Wow.
summer he called me and he said, he was so excited. He said, "Hey, I finished reading your new book, Samsara Interrupted."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh, what did you think of it?" He says, "Well, it wasn't as bad as the first one."
Thanks, Pop.
Yeah. So he someone who uses clean language, used clean language all the time. And this strike two, you're out has the liberal use of the F word.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the way that the character spoke. I don't necessarily talk like that all the time, but
no, I don't know you to talk that way. Yeah.
I felt like the character did, and it wasn't gratuitous. It was just part of the character's life. And I think for someone who would prefer not to see that, this might not be the book for them.
And where's the book available?
So it's available on Amazon. I think it's on Walmart.com as well. The first one anyway, Strike Two, You're Out. Samsara Interrupted is only available through Amazon.
Okay.
I had both books available at different bookstores, but unfortunately, bookstores are a tough business, and our local bookstore here in Plymouth, Mass, has recently gone out of business.
That stinks.
Yeah,
that really does stink. Listen, I'm an Amazon fan, as I think most people are, whether it's fan or user. But it was really cool. It's really cool to go into a bookstore and browse and sit and read and flip pages.
Yeah. I've made it available at several libraries too, but it's a thrill to just, it's an ego boost to go into a library and see your own book there. So it's kind of a hoot.
Have you done any promotion? Have you done any speaking, readings or speaking or book events?
I've done some, especially when the bookstore downtown was open, we did a reading down there and, a signing ceremony, and that was really nice. I've also done some book groups and where book clubs where people will buy the book, and now we're doing them virtually. So people will buy the book once they've all read it, and then we schedule a Zoom call, and I'll go in and I can do readings and talk about the book, and they ask me a lot of questions. I've also went back to my alma mater, Providence College, and spoke to the fiction writers seminar class.
Oh, cool.
And did a couple of readings for them, and answered their questions about the writing process. And again, I never felt like I'm a writer. When I read books, I read really good books, and I'm not Hemingway, okay? But
can you fish?
Yeah, yes, and not even that well. But apparently, enough people like the book. I found got a lot of great reviews from it, and so people do enjoy it. And I think the one person said to me that really stuck with me. We were playing in the band, and I was promoting the book, the first one. In that book, in Strike Two, You're Out, I had to write a song as a poem in the book, and then I set it to music, and we played that in our band. So that kind of gave me an excuse to sell the books. But someone came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, I read your book," and he said it really made me want to be a better person.
Wow.
And that really floored me
Wow.
because I had no intention of, that was not my goal.
Mm.
And it was just really so gratifying.
So it's also award winning. Tell me about that process. Did you submit? Did it come up, or did you
So,
submit for an award? How does that work?
so it's really my work, throughout my career in the arts.
Hmm.
This was for the Dr. Adrian Tinsley Award is through the Bridgewater State University Alumni
Hmm.
Association, and every couple of years they award someone who's had achievements in the arts. And the first book was really kind of a culmination of all that. I mean, I had to write a song in the book. I had to write the book, and then we performed the song in my band. And I think it was just seen that through my involvement with the arts through my career, that this was kind of the capstone. And so I was recognized for that.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
All right. We will take our second commercial. Everybody, we'll be back in about 60 seconds with Tim Hassett-Salley.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
The YP.com website is your local search engine. If you're looking for a good restaurant, it can help you find the right one nearby with ratings and reviews. Or if your car breaks down, you can use the YP app to find the closest repair shop. Or maybe you're just looking for something to do on a Friday night. Well, it has great local coupons for all sorts of things in your area. No matter what, when, or where, if you're looking for something, YP Local Search can help you find it. So go to YP.com or download the app to search local, find local, and save local.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind: to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
So we're back with Tim Hassett-Salley. He's two-time award-winning author of Strike Two, You're Out and Samsara Interrupted, which we'll get to in just a moment here. He also happens to be the Director of Revenue Development at WCRI, that's Workers' Compensation Research Institute. So tell us now about Samsara Interrupted, and start with, who is Samsara?
So Samsara is the Buddhist notion of reincarnation, of birth, death, and then rebirth. And so this book is really about the afterlife, if you will, but it's a novel. I wrote a story around it, and I don't want to give away too much, except I will say that the main character is in a horrendous automobile accident.
Peter Dunn.
And he wakes up, if you will, and wonders if he's in heaven, if he's in hell, or it slowly came to him that he might have been reincarnated. And so I think it's a notion that's fascinating to people. I think I've talked to other people who had this, wonder what happens to us after we die. Obviously, most people think of that.
Right.
And I kind of looked at the Judeo-Christian tradition of the afterlife and kind of compared that to the Buddhist notion of reincarnation. And I had the main character, Peter Dunn, kind of hedge his bets because he wasn't sure where he was.
Just in case.
Yes, in case. And he was like, he had to go back and live life again as a teenager. So in a way, that was kind of like hell. But
it's funny that there'd be some things I'd enjoy, some things I definitely wouldn't enjoy to do over again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that most adults, and I'll speak as an adult male, we all have this fantasy, or what would it be like to go back and to be young again, but to have the wisdom,
the knowledge,
of the old
wisdom.
man. Like Bob Seger says, the life of a young man with the wisdom of an old man, and what would that be like? And so I've kind of played that fantasy out, and really talked about some life lessons in that process. And it's a messy, complicated life, but a believable life that the main character had. And how it ends, I think most people have really enjoyed the ending, but they didn't see it coming. And
Oh, nice.
yes, so I enjoyed that. It was
I think
kind
that's a compliment, by the way.
of, I hope so.
Yeah.
It was kind of a double twist at the end. So the that was a lot of fun to write that book. There was less of me in that book than
Mhm.
there was in the first novel. But I did set it back in Great Marsh, Connecticut, which is the old original name of Ellington, Connecticut. So
Mhm.
people who know me and from growing up who bought the book enjoyed the local references.
Cool. And where did the idea come from, and what was the process? I'm I could be wrong. I'm guessing this was a shorter than 6-year process.
Not much. It took me
Oh,
4.5 years
okay.
to write
Okay.
this. The idea, I actually had this idea before I had the Strike
Oh,
2 You're Out, but the Strike
interesting.
2 You're Out was more emotional for me, and I felt like I had to get it
Mm.
out.
Mhm.
But I think, I mean, my whole life, you wonder about the afterlife, and if
And
you
you
are
say in the beginning you grew up in the Roman Catholic tradition, and you've learned about other religions or worldviews?
yes, you're right. And I've studied various religions, and for this book in particular, had to do considerable research into
Mm.
Buddhism, which was not my culture.
Mhm.
So I wanted to use uh, aspects of it, especially as Americans understand Buddhism, which is
Mhm.
not in its pure form, but I wanted to do it without cultural, appropriation. Um, I wanted to do it as an American would kind of take on a different religion
Mhm.
that they weren't
Mhm.
familiar with. And so I think I did it in a respectful way, but also I don't think I answered any major questions that people have. You're left with as many questions at the end of the book started with, except I think I pretty much put the rest that notion that going back in time might be fun. I think it wouldn't be as much fun as we fantasize it to be.
So, I'm really curious about the cover photo, which you took.
Yes.
Uh, really well done. Where did you find that image?
I found that in my front flower bed. The Buddha statue had been up on a pedestal, and
Mhm.
uh, it just you can tell it deteriorated over time.
Right.
It fell off, and it was just laying in a bed of
Little
leaves.
cracked.
And I just happened to see it, and I that angle
Yeah.
of the picture was
Yeah.
the exact angle of me just standing over it, looking down at it. My son is a graphic artist,
Mhm.
and he designed the cover based on that photograph, and I was really thrilled with the work he did in that. And I'll shout out to my daughter-in-law, Bridget Griffin, who did the first Strike Two You're Out. That's
Well, I
original.
meant to ask, I forgot,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's original artwork that she did. I had given her a stick figure representation of what I wanted to see, and she came up with that in the color scheme, and I was just thrilled with the work she did.
Uh, that's awesome, it's really good. What part did your, psychological background, your therapy background play in the second book, if any?
Only a little. The main character, Peter Dunn, and his wife before the terrible accident, he'd
Mhm.
been married for a number of years,
Mhm.
and they had some real life struggles they'd gone through. And therapy was one of the vehicles that his wife had. His wife was May. Um, what she had gone through to try to overcome the problems that they'd had earlier in their life.
Mm.
But otherwise, I think my personal psychology training gave me insights into
Mm.
their personalities, but I didn't do it so directly as I did in the first book, where with making the character a psychologist.
And was there a particular audience you had in mind for Samsara Interrupted?
Um, Anyone who's still alive or maybe having been reincarnated, I think, will be enjoying the book.
Nice, nice.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
future plans for additional books?
Well, I just started writing what I think will be another book because it's mostly up here in my head,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I think there'll be some substance there. And this is another kind of what if book. What if my life had taken a different direction? What if I had made different choices earlier on? Where would that have led out to?
Yeah.
Strike Two, You're Out was definitely definitely a what if book. There's just right off the bat, I'll give away one thing in Strike Two. His troubles began at the tobacco farm. When he's picking tobacco, and a migrant worker had stolen his lunch the first day he showed up on the job. And in real life, that happened to me. And I went to confront the worker, and he was up in a tractor, and he just pulled out a big long knife, which was my signal to back off. So, and it was also my signal to never again bring my lunch to work, because it was just going to get stolen.
Yeah.
So, in the book, I have him bring a lunch the second day as well, and he leaves it in the same spot as where it had gotten stolen the first day. But on the second day, he put broken glass and ground up Fritos inside of his sandwich, so that when whoever stole his sandwich were to eat it, we're going to get severely injured. And that's exactly what happened. And that's where he faced charges and was given the option of going to juvenile detention or going to the Marine Corps.
Wow. Okay, so you said the first book's available both are on Amazon. Book's on.
Last I checked, it was still on Walmart.com as well. But both are available on Amazon. I did leave I have a website that I put in the chat for you during the break. And
it's gone across the crawl a couple times already. It's
okay.
Tim Hassett-Salley. That's Tim.
Yep.
Well, there it is right there. Thanks, Juan.
Yep, there it is.
So everyone should go to that website, Tim Hassett-Salley with an EY, 2 S's and 2 T's in Hassett. And you will find some good information there. You'll get to know Tim a little bit more. You'll find the books, but you can find them on Amazon. All right, here's a question I like to end with. Who in the listening and viewing audiences should reach out to you, and why?
Well, I'd be happy to talk to anyone who's read the book if they wanted to get some more insights. But as far as my career, I'm at the point in my career where I'm giving back.
Nice. Yep.
Younger people who are getting into development or sales, especially in my industry, I'm happy to talk to. Always glad to network. Networking is probably the single most important thing you can do
Agreed.
to succeed. And so I'm always happy to do that. And if anyone had questions about the work we're doing at the WCRI, I'm always happy to talk to them about that and see if there's a good fit between our purposes.
Would you be interested maybe in speaking about the book or the writing process? I know you speak a lot in your industry. What are some of the topics that you might talk about in terms of the book side, and then maybe some of the professional side? Probably everybody in that industry knows you already, but who knows?
So on the professional side, we really talk about the types of research that we do, and we publish around 40 reports a year, which is, for the size of our staff, which is a remarkable accomplishment. But it's very well known. We are, the organization in the industry that does that type of work. As far as the books, I'm just happy to talk to people to do a reading for a group, to do a signing, or to do a book club, and that's been a lot of fun, whether it's in person or I've been able to do it through Zoom throughout the pandemic with people from all over the country.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Zoom. The good news of the pandemic was it opened up a lot of those relationships cross country, which it's a good thing. That's the only good thing.
For sure.
I did notice. I meant to ask you. You did 2 stints at the current company. You were
Yes.
there a while back, and somebody loved you enough to bring you back, I guess.
Well, I think that's true, Kevin. And I actually left there in 2020 during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I was laid off. I don't think there's any secret there.
Yep.
And I was gone for almost 3 years. And about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, they brought me back.
That's great.
I'm thrilled to be back. It's a great organization. I'm not planning to end my career any day soon, but it is the kind of place I'd love to finish my career.
That's awesome. Love to hear that. And the best way, again, for people to get in touch, for those on the radio, it's Tim Hassett-Salley, TimHassett-Salley.com, TimHassett-Salley.com. Tim, thank you so much for spending some time with us. My guess is the audience has enjoyed it. I certainly did. It's good to reconnect. Oh, I will say this before we end. We've known each other for a long time, but we had this chance meeting, which was fun and just unexpected. And you gave me the first book signed during the flight. We were on a flight together coming back from Orlando several months ago. I think it's probably now 6-ish months ago. It's so random. Yeah, I know we both live in Boston, but for us to be on the same flight in the same city, coming home from the same city, pretty funny.
One of those chance meetings that's right. Really fun.
And that ended up us going back and forth a little bit and picking the right date for you to be on the air. So I appreciate it.
Great catching up with you, Kevin, and I appreciate you having me on the program.
My pleasure. And thanks everybody for watching and listening. This is a show about business, often business challenges. But if you've got concerns about the sales effectiveness or the growth of your company, whether your sales team is you or very small or it's very large, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or LinkedIn at Winning Business Radio. You can also Google my name, Kevin Hallinan, or drop me a note at Kevin at winningbusinessradio.com. Our company is Winning Incorporated. We're part of Sandler Training. We say we develop salespeople, sales teams into high achievers, and sales leaders into true coaches and mentors. Hey, listen, we're not right for everybody, but maybe we should have a conversation. Thank you to producer and engineer Juan. Thank you, Juan, for another job well done. Really appreciate it. Be sure to join us next week, everybody, Monday, January 27th. We'll do it all over again. Until then, this is Kevin Hallinan.
You've been listening to Winning Business Radio with your host, Kevin Hallinan. If you missed any part of this episode, the podcast is available on Talk4 Podcasting and iHeartRadio. For more information and questions, go to winningbusinessradio.com or check us out on social media. Tune in again next week and every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to listen live to Winning Business Radio on W4CY Radio, W4CY.com. Until then, let's succeed where others have failed and win in business with Kevin Hallinan and Winning Business Radio.